Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sever7, and today we're taking a look at the Civivi Anaaki, and that's with the ultimate goal of seeing what's worth adding to your collection or your daily carry rotation. Now, this knife did come to me from the Lefty Pass-Around group, so thank you guys. I appreciate you sharing. The designer of the Anaaki is in-house at Civivi, and the OEM for Sencut, Civivi, and Wii is Wii, right? So it's an in-house OEM as well. Jumping right into it, we've got these nice milled aluminum green anodized scales, and the milling is really impressive. At first I thought this was one piece, in the milling below was a second piece of milling attached to it, so it was like two scales sandwiched on top to give this look. Turns out that is not the case. Turns out that this scale is just one piece of aluminum that's been heavily milled. And same thing for over here, just one piece of aluminum that's been heavily milled. So it's not like an integral, but each scale is one piece, just with super deep and intricate milling, which I think is awesome. Normally I'm not the biggest fan of scaly, but it's been growing on me a little bit. And I especially like that even though it's scaly, there's like, I'm not gonna touch the blade, right? Because like scaly can be cool, but I don't like it when it's so scaly that like I could be pushing on the side of the blade itself, right? That would be really bothersome for me. We've got this nice kind of satin hardware. We have a gray plunge lock button, typical Civivi logo, a matching gray deep carry steel pocket clip. Really nothing too insane. We've got our 3 standoffs back here. I'm thankful that this bottom standoff isn't centered in the middle like so many knives, because what happens is the tip of the blade has to end above the standoff if it's sitting like right in the middle of the scales, and it just kills the blade to handle ratio. This knife thankfully still has a very good blade to handle ratio, and I am at no risk possibly of poking myself. Talking about the ergonomics a little bit. As far as the ergos go, this knife is telling you exactly how it wants to be held. That's not a bad thing. What I found though is that it's a bit of a tight fit for my large size hands. I can't fist grip it. I'm not touching that button. Whenever I fist grip it, I'm at no like threat of disengaging it whatsoever. But as you can see, I'm a little bit cramped, right? If I just hold it naturally, then my ring finger sits right on top of this, which over time and with enough pressure will create a hot spot. So if you're medium-sized gloves, I would say you're fine. Large-sized gloves like me, it's okay. I mean, this knife isn't meant for hard use anything. So if you're just opening packages, opening boxes, you'll be fine. If you're bigger than large size gloves, I would look at something different. And if you're smaller than medium, I think you'll still be fine. Yeah, because the ergonomics are good if your hand's the right size. So I think large and smaller can really appreciate this knife. You can also get right here where you have some meaningful jimping, but you can also extend up here if you need to put a little more power behind your cut. You can also get right up here for any precision cuts you need to do, which is nice. But overall, ergonomics, they're good. Pocket clip, you can feel it, but it doesn't cause a hot spot. Not unless, you know, like you're really squeezing down. You know, like if you're working at the factory, you got 8 hours in, and you've been using this only to cut boxes with, which I wouldn't recommend, then yeah, that pocket clip's gonna be a hot spot for you, especially if you have bigger hands. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The back's nicely knocked down. The scales aren't a hot spot at all. You know, it's really just that pocket clip over extended periods of use, and for hands that are large, this here might become a hot spot for you, kind of like it is for me with my finger sitting right on top of it. But if you're medium or smaller, I don't think you'll have a single hot spot, to be honest. Now, let's talk about this action a bit. Typically, button locks suck whenever it comes to action, because instead of having a detent ball that with say a frame lock, you have a detent ball, and to break the detent, you have to build up enough force, and you have to snap it out. Well, that creates the action, the acoustics. You know, that's kind of like the bread and butter of action in general, is having a detent ball and breaking it. With button locks, it's a little bit different because we have a plunge, which means that inside of top this top piece of metal right here, we have a spring. All right, it's housed, and then we have a button that pushes down on that housed spring, and then we disengage. And then to open it, instead of overcoming a detent ball, we overcome that spring tension. And that's essentially it. Which means instead of having one buildup and one break, you get more of a mushy kind of like, you know what I'm saying? It just sucks. Now, what's different on this knife, though, I don't know how they did it. This feels like it has a detent. Look at that. Just eats it up. And I can fail flick this. See how if I'm not precise with it, if I don't give it enough effort, it just won't deploy. Well, that's awesome, because that means I have to treat it like a frame lock or a liner lock. I actually have to meaningfully deploy it. And the acoustics are fine. Not the best I've ever heard, but for a button lock, they're pretty damn good. And the action is pretty fantastic. I really can't complain. I don't know what they did to make the spring tension so tight initially, but then have it essentially loosen up or feel soft when you get up here. But like down here, to break the initial tension, like it takes a lot to get it out of there. So if more button locks had this feeling, I would buy more button locks. And I'm curious if I can buy a spring from Civivi and then put that into another button lock and just see if it does the same thing for the action, which would be pretty sweet if it did. Now, as far as stop pin placement, it looks like we have, I don't know, maybe, what, like 1/8 of an inch? So we're probably sitting at like right here before you hit this top pin. So I would say you have like 4 or 5 sharpenings out of this before you start to have an impact on the stop pin. Maybe even more. Because that stop pin is located like right down here. This is where it's touching. So I think you're fine. Awfully big sharpening choil. You can kind of get in there without the point being a problem. But you just kind of have to trigger pull it, right? So you're not bracing up against the blade. You're more bracing back against the rear flipper. And that'll keep you away from this tip, so you don't have to worry about cutting yourself. It also gives you a lot more control and a lot more precision in your cuts. So that's worth noting. As far as the blade goes, which I totally skipped over, as far as the blade goes, we have a very nice, kind of a double poon. With this being a super minor poon, but this one being a pretty predominant poon, We've got like a double poon drop point, which I think looks fantastic. We've got some belly. For slicing, we are rocking Nitro V, which is an excellent budget steel. Got a really nice kind of satin finish. Looks like a little bit of a belt satin, if I can get it just right in the light. And then we've got a hand satin for the flats. Overall, a really nice looking blade. Really well done. This is going to be great for poking into bags of chips, dog food, cat food, stuff like that. It'll be great for poking into things, but it's also not going to be a bad slicer because it is giving you some belly. I can tell this one's been used a bit. Yeah, we've got a little bit of... Nothing I've done with it has been substantial enough. I've just cut open, a couple of boxes and, cut up some letters and stuff, the junk mail. Big fan of the blade. Now, as far as Nitro V goes, it leans stainless. Edge retention isn't great, but it sharpens really easily. So that's kind of the benefit. It's easy to touch up, and it's pretty close to stainless. But, if Nitro V is for people that like to sharpen or people that want to get better at sharpening, right? Because you'll be doing it more often with this knife. Now, it takes a really, really bitey edge, but, if you plan on daily carrying this and you're not a sharpener, you might not get as much life out of this as you'd want to, right? So I would say, don't not buy it if you don't like to sharpen, but just realize that you're not getting the maximum value from this blade steel unless you're willing to strop it, sharpen it, and, really take care of it. So let's talk about some specs. So overall length is 7.06 inches. The blade length is 2.98 inches. And the blade to handle ratio is 0.73. Anything over 0.7 is acceptable. 0.8 is where we really start to kind of get that Shirogorov 50-50 look, which, I think every knife should really strive for because it just looks so good. And then we have an overall weight of 2.17 ounces. So as you can tell, with all this internal milling, aluminum's already not very heavy, but having all that milling done is just going to make it even lighter. We'll do a few size comparisons. Up against the milled aluminum Civivi Brazen, the third best Civivi ever made next to the Visions. We are also going to put it up against the real steel Sylph. And I have once again lost my Migron Gottov. So our third knife is going to be the Pyrotech Tsunami, formerly known as the Pyrotech Kraken. And for me personally, the best crossbar lock ever. And we can see the Anaaki is coming in about the same size as the Sylph and coming in a little bit smaller than the Pyrotech Tsunami, formerly the Kraken. All right, so what's the price on this guy run? Well, it depends on the version. For the Damascus version, you're looking at about $104. And for this version and the other color variants like this, you're looking at about $89. So is it worth $89? Well, let's look at its realistic competition. For $89, you can get the Vision FG that Civivi makes. I think you're pretty close to the neighborhood of the Civivi Buster. And I would say both of those knives are superior to this one. What else? You've got the milled aluminum Civivi Brazen, right? With when it's not on sale, it goes for like 70 bucks. I think for what you're getting here, aluminum and Nitro V, I think 89 bucks is actually kind of steep. I don't see why this knife isn't like 70 bucks, right? And don't get me wrong, like I'm a fan of knives that are greater than the sum of their parts, and they did nail this button lock action like really well. And the knife looks cool. There is a lot of milling here. But without the milling, I'd say 65 bucks. With the milling, I'd say 70. I'm not entirely sure why this knife is $89. Because I feel like knives within Civivi's own lineup beat it as far as value goes, right? I mean, busting out the milled aluminum Civivi Brazen, I mean, it's a lot more knife. It still has milled diamond texture aluminum. It's a liner lock, great action, right? So why is this coming in like 25 bucks cheaper? Yeah, like 25 bucks cheaper. Why is this 25 bucks cheaper than this? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think 89 is horrifically priced. Especially if you like the aesthetic. I've overpaid for things because I thought they looked really cool. And you better believe if there was a $60 knife that had an aesthetic that I loved, yeah, I'd pay 89 bucks for it, for sure. So, I mean, if you love this aesthetic, then yeah, I mean, go for it. It's not a bad knife. I mean, I actually like the knife quite a bit. I just happen to think that 89 bucks is a little high for Nitro V and aluminum. You know, especially whenever Migron's delivering aluminum and D2 for 30 bucks. Yeah, you could say Nitro V is the superior steel, sure. But okay, 50 bucks, right? Aluminum and Nitro V shouldn't be $59 more than a Migron Gotov. So, I don't know. I dig the look. I do like the knife quite a bit. I just think they're overpriced themselves a little bit on this one. So, but I do like the knife. For me, this would be a daily driver, not a collection piece. But what about for you guys? Is this something that would find its way into your collection? Would you drive this thing daily? I'm really interested to hear your thoughts down below. And if you guys like the video, hit the like button. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And until next time, guys, peace.